Hello and welcome to the Gooner Talk, back again with you guys for another show, for another episode of our Tactical Breakdown series, the show in which we look at the players that Arsenal could, should, maybe, and fingers crossed will hopefully see sign for the Gunners this summer. Now, we've made a couple of signings, but we are still on the warpath to try and get over the line some proper, expensive deals that are going to inspire the fans, get those shirt sales flowing. And today we're going to look at two players in which Arsenal have been heavily linked to this summer, two players in which Arsenal would need to spend a hell of a lot of money to acquire, and two of the players that Unai Emery could have been talking about when he mentioned that Arsenal were in the market for expensive deals and were currently negotiating for expensive deals too. But before we jump into the video, please make sure you give it a like, please subscribe if you're new around here with those notifications turned on so you never miss a show. If you click that little bell button, it'll tell you whenever we go live. I am planning this afternoon to do a live video looking at the Nicolas Pepe news in more detail in terms of the bid and the reactions to the latest Arsenal news surrounding Nicolas Pepe. So if you want to be in the live chat for that, click that notification bell and you'll be notified when we go live so you can get your comments in the description. But I hope you're really enjoying the series, and if you are, please leave a comment in today's video telling me that you are, tell me what you like about it, and ultimately leave a comment about which player from today's video you would like to see the Arsenal sign. And speaking of which, I actually put a poll out yesterday which was heavily in favour of Arsenal signing Nicolas Pepe, as you can see from the screen there. And he's one of the two players we're going to look at, the other one, of course, being Wilfried Zaha. Now, Zaha, it seemed, was Arsenal's priority target this summer. We put in a 40 million bid for him. We supposedly put another bid in, but that's not been officially confirmed yet. And now the recent news, which has broken over the last couple of weeks or so, it started with a reported €72 million bid for Nicolas Pepe, which David Ornstein came out and completely eradicated and said that we just don't have the money to do it. And over the last 24 hours or so, it's been revealed that Arsenal are supposedly really in advanced negotiations with Lille and are battling Napoli for the signing now of Nicolas Pepe. Now, considering this is someone that was linked to Bayern Munich and Liverpool, how it's now dropped, I don't want to say dropped, that sounds harsh on Arsenal, but when you consider the levels of Bayern Munich and Liverpool and how successful they've been over the last half decade or so, compared to Arsenal, it is not at the same sort of competitive level as it was prior. And so the fact it's dropped down to us and to Napoli now, I don't know what that necessarily means. Maybe it just wasn't a realistic target for those two teams, but supposedly Lille have agreed with 4 separate clubs a fee, so we'll just have to wait and see what happens with this deal. But I want to use this video to compare both Wilfried Zaha and Nicolas Pepe, so let's get straight into that and do that now. So if we start off in terms of age, obviously Pepe is 24, Zaha's 26. Pepe turns 25 next May, while Zaha turns 27 this November. So there's a considerable gap between those two in terms of the different eras of football. Zaha's entering his prime years, where Pepe is just sort of finishing off that youngster sort of thing. I say that, and he's the right end of the periphery of that now, turning 25 next year, will be fully into his matured football senior career, well away from all those sort of excuses to say he's only young and all that. He will be turning 25 next year. But at 24 years old, there's still a lot of potential still to be realised, whereas with Zaha, it's very much a case of this is what you get with what you're seeing from Zaha, and this is what you will see if he comes to Arsenal. Then in terms of their height, they're very similar in height. Pepe's 6 foot, and Zaha is 5'11", so very similar, but we're going to have a talk about the statistics and how it links to their aerial abilities a little bit later on. And then in terms of actual goals and assists output, Pepe in 41 games scored 23 goals and got 12 assists, which is a fantastic return, whereas Wilfried Zaha, 36 games but only 10 goals and 10 assists. Now, yes, that was in the Premier League and the FA Cup, whereas Pepe's was in the French competitions, and you could argue that, yes, there's probably a much lower down competitive nature to that, but he still has to take those chances, and he did when he got them. When we talk about some of the shot statistics, you're going to see why. So let's start into the video and break down what we can see. First of all, you're going to see their positions. Now, they do play in slightly different positions whilst they are both wingers. You can see from the heat map on your screen that Zaha is very much to the left and Pepe is very much to the right. And they are inverted wingers because Zaha is right-footed and Pepe is left-footed, and so that's why they like to cut inside and take those shots. But you actually notice where Pepe's heat map is slightly shaded further towards the centre of the pitch, whereas Zaha is much more keeping to the touchline. And that's just because they've got different styles. Pepe likes to come inside much earlier, whereas Zaha waits to get much more nearer the box before he comes into the middle of the pitch. Whether that translates into Arsenal terms, we like to use our width and go to the byline quite a lot, so that probably falls in the Ivorian in terms of Zaha. They're both Ivorian, so I nearly went for that trick. Into Zaha's favour, that going to the byline is probably more to his skill. But Pepe could bring a little bit of dynamism and unpredictability versatility to the Arsenal side by cutting inside much earlier than we usually see from Arsenal players. Now let's drop right into the attacking stats and find out how these two match up. So you can see the stats on your screen now. We start off with shots. And we go into a little bit more detail than shots than with the other stats. So the brass tacks is that Pepe has 2.97 shots per game with a 54% shot accuracy, whereas Zaha is less than that, 1.97 shots per game with a 38.7% success rate in terms of how accurately they're hitting the target. Now I'm going to break this down further, and you can see on the screen now the two different ways, or the two, basically the graphics showing you where the two players take their shots from. Now if you look at Pepe's, for instance, you can actually see that he much tends to take these shots from outside of the box, many more being peppered from outside, usually a finesse shot across the keeper into the far left hand side, but he can take those near post shots. You can see him scoring one on your screen now, and he likes to take one with power and accuracy, and he does that really well, hence the much higher accuracy of 54%. If you then look at the amount of unpredictability about his shots, they're peppered all across the box. There's not necessarily a main theme. Yes, he likes to take them from outside the box and finesse them, but he has got a lot of high range of different types of shot locations, whereas if you look at that in comparison to Zaha, it's actually a really confusing graphic, because you see there is a concentration on that left hand side of the box where he's taking those shots, but if you look at the purple dots, that actually shows you the goals that he scored, and the majority of the goals that he scored didn't come from those positions. Now I don't think that actually falls in Zaha's favour. Yes, you could say, oh, he's unpredictable and that's when he scores, but the fact he's taking so many shots from the same location to the left hand side of that box and they're not really doing anything is a cause for concern. Now, if you put into the Arsenal side, I don't know how much freedom he would get, because you've already got some very big hard hitters in Aubameyang and Lacazette in that team that know their positions, know their locations. So Zaha, for me, would more so be shackled out to that left-hand side. And if he's going to be taking those shots more often, maybe that would limit how effective he would be in the Arsenal side. But that's down to me, and that's just my opinion. So please tell me in the comment description if you agree with that. Back to the attacking stats then. Shot assist, Pepe wins that 1.75 to Zaha's 1.32. Dribbles, this is now where Zaha comes into his own. He's a much more confident and powerful dribbler. The pace that he possesses and the strength that he possesses definitely back him up here. Pepe 7.71 dribbles, 48% success in those, but Zaha 12.94 with a 71.7% success rate in his dribbling. He uses that pace and power to get him behind the defence and cause a lot of damage. Offensive duels is a similar story. 16.34 for Pepe, of 40% success in those offensive duels. Zaha though 25.27 with 52% success rate, much higher again. Touches in the box, Zaha wins again, 4.37 to Pepe's 2.97. Progressive runs, 2.63 for Pepe and 2.66 for Zaha. So they're both very similar in how many runs they're making, trying to find space for their teammates. If we then move on to passing, and passing is very key for a team that for a player that's going to play for Arsenal. Passes, Pepe 30.1 per game with an 81% success. Zaha slightly lower, 28.1 with a 79% success, but still very similar in terms of the accuracy and the frequency of those passes. Long passing, 0.79 for Pepe, 54.5% to Zaha's 0.92 with a 57.1% success rate. Pepe has shown in the African Cup of Nations, whilst he didn't score or wasn't actually in that offensive side of the game, his passing really was highlighted in that tournament. You can see from the graphic on your screen the way he gets the ball in behind, it's very effective. Through passes, 1.1 with a 45.7% success for Pepe. Less though for Zaha, 0.82, a 32.3. Now, as a winger for Arsenal, you need to be able to play those inverted passes in between the gaps, finding the space for Aubameyang and Lacazette to run onto, and Pepe is definitely much more akin to doing that. Crossing though, Zaha is definitely in favour of this, 2.55 with a 39.2% success rate, and Pepe 1.46 with a 27.9% success in his crossing. So while Zaha definitely beats Pepe in his crossing, I think that's more down to the fact of the way that Crystal Palace play rather than down to how good they are at crossing. Crystal Palace obviously have got many more tall players in the box which they can utilise, the likes of Benteke, etc. And so that's probably why you see more crosses come from the Premier League Ivorian. In terms of passing to the final third, 3.23 for Pepe over 74.1% success. Zaha doing them less so, 2.71 over 76.7% success. And then passes into the box, 2.78 for Pepe, 56% success, and Zaha 3.34 with a 71.7% success. So through passes to the final third in the box are sort of alternating for the two there. They're both very strong in that area. They like to find those passes, but Zaha, especially into the box, is a lot more accurate with it when he gets that ball and tries to play it. And that down to the fact that Pepe is much more akin to trying to get into that box and trying to get a shot away or find one just on the outside of the box. So when he's at that opportunity, he knows that he's got the ability to finesse those balls around the keeper or strike a through ball, driven shot down to the keeper's near side. If we then move on to the defence, because this is getting extremely heavy in terms of stats today. In terms of the defence, defensive duels, Pepe 3.33 of a 54.7% success. Zaha 5.23 of a 22.6% success rate. So that actually goes to show, people rave about Wilfried Zaha's defensive capabilities, the way he gets back, but you can see there from the stats how successful Pepe is in terms of his defending. And it carries on in aerial duels. I mentioned that he's only an inch higher or so than Wilfried Zaha, but he uses that to that effect. He scores goals with his head and he wins headers in key areas. 2.54 aerial duels with 43.4% success, whereas Zaha much less, 1.1 aerial duels with just 11.9% success rate. So much higher in favour of the Ligue 1 Ivorian player. Interceptions is a similar story, 1.72 for Pepe with a 1.34 for Zaha, winning the ball in key areas more often. Losses, again, this falls in Pepe's favour, 11.63 losses per game compared to Zaha's 11.81, but Pepe loses it less in his own half, just over 2% less, but it's still a significant amount across a whole season. It's important to know that he's very conservative with the ball in his own half, and I say very conservative, he's more conservative with the ball than Zaha is. Any winger isn't going to be very conservative with the ball in their own half. Recoveries, this is more on Zaha's side, 2.4 for Pepe with a 3.3 for Zaha, but Zaha winning it more in the opposition half, 62.2%, but only slightly less for Pepe, over 59.6% being won in the opposition half. Fouls, this is partly where Zaha falls down. His discipline is nowhere near as good as Pepe's. 0.65 fouls per game for Pepe, but 1.29 fouls every single game being made by Wilfried Zaha, and that links into his discipline with his yellow and red cards. Pepe is only getting 0.02 yellows per game, whereas Wilfried Zaha 0.26, so around 1 every 4 games for Zaha, and that has led to, of course, him also getting a red card this season. So that's entirely all of the stats for those two. Very heavy and lots of information for you to take in, I know, so feel free to go back and scroll through and pause at any point if you want to read those in more detail. But I think there's definitely pros and cons for both players. For me, I'm slightly beginning to lean towards Pepe. I don't know if that's just a psychological factor, because it seems that Arsenal are actually in for the player a bit more than they were for Wilfried, it did seem, but that's just my opinion. I think he provides a lot more defensive cover, and if he's going to be playing on that right-hand side, if you've got to think we've got the likes of Bellerin or Ainsley Maitland-Niles, they need a lot more cover than if we bring in Kieran Tierney. I know that we've got Kolasinac and Monreal, and they can be defensively flawed sometimes, but if we do manage to bring in Kieran Tierney, he's much more defensively sound and doesn't need as much cover from that left-hand side. I also think that Aubameyang can be really dangerous on that left-hand side by cutting in and getting behind if he is going to be played out there, with Lacazette being played more central. And then you've got Pepe, who can provide more defensive cover for the likes of Bellerin when he goes forward, or for Ainsley Maitland-Niles when he deputises for him when Bellerin is injured. So I think there's a lot to take from both of those. I think it's going to be important to see what one comes in and what type of sort of benefits we'll get from them. I'm just hoping that we bring one of them in, to be honest. We desperately need to bring a winger in. Seeing a front three of Aubameyang, Lacazette, and then either of these two on either side, I think really transforms that front line to a much more potent, much more dangerous goal threat, and it's something that we can definitely benefit from. I'm going to leave things there. I hope you've really enjoyed the show. If you have, please drop a like, please subscribe if you're new around here with those notifications turned on so you never miss a show. I'll see you again this afternoon for what will most likely be a Raw reaction show, mostly reacting to the latest news surrounding Nicolas Pepe and getting your thoughts in that live chat box and answering some of your questions too. So I'll see you then. I hope you enjoy the rest of your Saturday, and as always, up the Arsenal.